We're back for another episode of the Monte and Wolf Show. Keep in mind, guys, that we are not going to have a show next week because there are no games. Wolf, how are you celebrating your Year of the Dragon?
I'm gonna co-stream challengers tomorrow, and then otherwise just going to sit on the couch and on days that my gym isn't open, and play PlayStation probably. I'm just hanging out.
Are you playing the new Like a Dragon game? That seems like something you would do.
I am still catching up on the other ones. Like I still have to play 4, 5, and 6, and then I'll play it. Because I started with 7, and it's a whole thing. Um, I guess I'm probably also going to spend some time celebrating the death of double support items in the bottom lane because we're not going to have that anymore. And I was a bit tired of that. So I'm very excited that's going away. I'll be doing that, a little bit of celebration about that.
But you can't actually celebrate the death of Corki in the game of League of Legends yet.
No, because he's not getting changed at all.
Yeah, it's very nice that they haven't like hot fixed Eclipse yet to not proc on Malignants, which is one of the biggest problems. Don't know why we can't do that one. Riot Games, that's clearly an unintended interaction. Can I please just have one tiny hot fix? Just one.
I don't understand why. Like Corky, he was like people saw this coming a million years ago. Like when the patch first hit, and then nobody talked about it. I think it's because Corky is one of those weird champs in solo queue where in pro play, like you can have a front line for your team's gonna front line for you. You can hit that poke. You can do a lot of stuff with Corky if you have a coordinated team. In solo queue, you kind of just have to like YOLO package in and hope you kill 2 people. Like it feels like a lot of the time. So Riot's always like very scared about like nerfing Corky because it would just ruin his opportunities in pro play. But some of the stuff that Corky does, I mean, the broken item build notwithstanding, how much damage he does with package, how much safety it gives him, is just ludicrous for pro play. And it's even more ludicrous that teams will just leave it open against teams that are better than them and then not pick it as well in the LCK. But anyway, that's going to continue. That'll be still happening next week.
All right, Wolf, it's time. We discussed last week that there were, this week's games, the Dplus Kia versus Hanwha Life notwithstanding, were a bunch of top 5 versus bottom 5 teams on paper, guys, or as you guys like to say, east side versus west side because of the way the scoreboard is laid out in the LCK. And we said immediately that if we are talking about you next week, you done goofed. And you know what, Wolf? We got exactly 2 games into this week of LCK in our first match before Kwangdong 2-0'd Dplus Kia. And I texted you immediately and I said, it already happened. Because we said there's going to be at least one upset because there's just too many games. There's like 8 of these games between alleged top versus bottom teams. Now, the rest of them, KT 2-0 Brion, as expected, T1 2-0 DRX. The other game that was supposed to be approximately equal was Fox versus Nongshim. Fox wins. GenG 2-0 Kwangdong. And then we had HLE 2-0ing Dplus. That was the only match between allegedly top teams. Then KT 2-1 DRX. T1 2-0 Brion. 2-1 for Hanwha Life over Nongshim and 2-0 for GenG over Fox. So everything else kind of playing out as we would have expected it. I think that if you were trying to predict outcomes this week and you picked the favorite every single time, the only game that you would have gotten wrong is Kwangdong over Dplus. Maybe you believed in Nongshim over Fox, but probably most of us would have picked the FearX team in that case. So yeah. Let's start with the shaming immediately, with the caveat that we have to discuss whether Kwangdong is actually a good team now.
Well, you said shaming. You can't spell shaming without aiming.
I like this. I like where this is going. Okay. Yes. Continue.
There have been a few aiming incidents.
Are you discussing the Kogba incident?
Let's just say there have been a few aiming incidents over the years. Some of them about purchasing forbidden items. Some of them about misplays, some of them about decisions that he's made in his life around some of the itemization that he's done. I mean, this is not a discussion about like buying Static Shiv when you're not allowed to buy it. It's about some of the item choices just in general he's made on Lucian. But sometimes you and Kingen, the weak links of Dplus, just can't figure out how to juggle turret aggro, and you just do it and you just walk into the turret anyways, and just auto lose the game against an opponent that is a must win for you, and then Kwangdong 2-0. So I just wanted to say all of that going into the Hanwha series, that I felt like, especially with how down I was on Hanwha against T1, I really thought maybe there's a world, we were like pretty positive that maybe Dplus could bring it back. Showmaker had a great performance in week 2 as well.
Yeah.
That they could do it. But then after I watched that Kwangdong series, I was like, well, never mind. I was a Dplus predictor. I was very wrong. I apologize to everyone because the team just doesn't look great. Now, I got to say all that before I say I think Kwangdong figured out their drafting this week. I think they had some really nice compositions. I think this team actually looks like they're starting to figure out how to play through Cuz. We saw,
Cuz, by the way, is a fucking monster right now.
He
This
might be
guy
the best jungler in the LCK. Like, legit.
I think that is not an outrageous thing to say, because we can discuss the obvious Kog'Maw incident where he threw, it gave them Baron, it gave Kwangdong Baron, but that is actually taking away from Cuz just mega hard carrying this game as Poppy, like getting the perfect Poppy ults when it looks like they're probably going to lose a team fight if he misses it. The incredible impact that he had on objective control. And I think what was so impressive about Cuz in game 2 of this series is that he is not even a Poppy player. He's not, guys. Like, that's what, when I saw Poppy drafted in this game, I was like, really? Cuz? To put this in perspective, he has played 12 games of Poppy in his entire career. That is one more than he has played of Jungle Zac. Now, think about that in terms of when Zac has been in the meta versus the last 2 years that Poppy has been a major pick. So it was not only surprising to see him play it, because with Cuz in the last couple of years, what have we seen? Sejuani Viego. Everybody can name those off the top. Wukong, huge picks for him. Vi, huge picks for him. Where has the Poppy been? He has literally played twice as many Jungle Volibear and Olaf games in his career as Poppy. So to have him look so good on this champion was very much a surprise for me.
I think it just clearly means he's putting in the work, Like, I think he's actually spending time to try to change his champion pool a little bit. And he and Bulldog must be screaming, how to synergize their plays together. Like, the Talia pick looked busted for Bulldog, a pick that in my mind, when I've seen him play it in the past, he's looked serviceable at best on. And even in that first game, he got caught a lot, and there were some mistakes, but he still ended up looking like he knew exactly what he was doing, because I feel like Cuz is telling him what to do. Like, all right, we're going in. I'm about to charge this guy into the wall. I need you to flip him back. We're going to kill this person. And he just did it. And when Cuz was essentially giving him orders, which it seemed like was the case, he looked much better. Andil also suddenly
looked way better. Yeah.
He's just like actually a really good player right now. Because we were super low on him, especially last year.
Yeah.
And when he and Bull were playing together in Challengers, we were like, that was like a forbidden bottom duo to talk about. We would never put it in the conversation of anything relevant. And then Bull joins this team, identity changes, Andil looks more confident, and I don't know, maybe he just really didn't like playing with Taeyun, or maybe Taeyun was trying to, he had a different view on the game, and it really put Andil away from being more aggressive and looking for picks. But the Nautilus game from Andil was also fantastic, where obviously he had gold, so he could go tank Nautilus, and he just constantly fished for engages. He was basically unkillable. And something has clicked, I feel like, with CV Max and this roster and how they want to draft around each other. And we went from the best games from Kwangdong were the weird ones where you're like, oh, Bulldog is playing Aurelion Sol and no one knows about that yet, so maybe they'll randomly win, to like, oh wow, this is actually a legit good comp, and they're playing it really well, and they know their win conditions, and they're fighting at the right time, and they're being aggressive and controlling choke points and putting deep vision up, and Cuz of diving with the Talia. This is sick. So I am very hopeful for this team that I thought after week 1, it looked so doomed. I was like, this is hopeless. Obviously, I couldn't have known that Bull was going to come in but
and then do so well.
yeah. So I mean, I couldn't have known back then. I'm just happy to be wrong because I'm seeing real growth in a team, which I don't know if I'm going to be saying about most of our East Side teams this season. But I don't know if Kwangdong is, by the way, going to remain an East Side team. In fact, I think they pushed to the West in standings this week. Let me check. Yeah, they're in 5th place right now, so technically on the West, and I think they might stay there. I don't know if we're going to see Fear X pass them and Dplus. Like, we're not feeling so confident at the moment. So I'm just glad. That's my bottom line here. I want to see this team continue its form. What's their schedule for next week? Next week they have DRX.
Not next week. 2 weeks from now. The next
next week of
yes.
LCK. Yeah, on week 4 of LCK, so the 14th, they play against DRX, and on the 16th they play against FearX. So if they fail these matches that should be pretty straightforward and relatively easy for them, then I think we'll pump the brakes on the Kwangdong hype train a little bit. But that should be a relatively easy week, especially with the amount of time they have to prep for it. And then after that, they play against, let me see, Bro, and then Bro. So like they're now I'm sad because they get the double Bro week as we switched to round 2. And the easy week 4, so maybe expectations for Kwangdong are going to be inflated. Maybe like right now we're like, oh, and then everyone's like, this is the greatest team because they have 4 easy matchups. They're going to shoot through the standings. When do they play against a good team? Hold on, I scroll forward. Okay, they play against GenG
Can we discuss? Hold up,
February
dude.
28th.
Can we discuss how, because the end of the first round robin occurs in the middle of a week, that the scheduling actually has them play Bro with a 1-day rest period? Who designs this? Like, at least make them play on different weeks. Like, why do we have to watch Kwangdong versus Brion one day, take a day off, and then watch round 2 a day later? This is horrible. This is horrible scheduling.
Yeah, I don't know why this happens. It happens like it feels like every other season. Like we had double telecom war.
Right.
Before I don't know. I mean,
I do find that scheduling somewhat interesting when it's good teams, because it's almost like you get to see them, make adjustments on the same patch and come back and try again, which I find fascinating. But I don't find it fascinating when it's just going to be Kwangdong just dumping on Brion 2 times in 3 days.
Yeah, it's not going to be great. I mean, we've had like T1 versus Bro back to back before as well, which was not fun.
I remember that.
It's I don't know exactly why the schedule is done this way, and I assume that the schedule is mostly random with some exceptions, obviously with like T1 versus GenG on opening day and Saturday showdowns. Maybe Saturday showdown is like KT versus T1 that week, and so they had to move some stuff. I don't know, Monty, but Kwangdong Freaks looking good now. Looks like they'll be looking good for 2 more weeks of regular play.
Yeah, and to Kwangdong's credit, I think we do have to compare them to their KT win, the Dplus win, which is that, okay, they come in against KT. It's their first match with Bull, right? Clearly, KT thinks that, I think it's a trap game for KT, number one, because there's the telecom war that they're playing literally, 2 days later. They come in and they think, oh, we're just gonna bully Bull in the bot lane. We're gonna ban his Draven or take it away from him, see if he can do anything else. And he just massively overperforms, right? Or overperforms based on expectations. I think now that we've seen multiple games of Bull, we can say that his average level is actually quite high, which is fun to see about this rookie player. And
Yeah.
KT also was very cocky in that draft, and I was curious because game 3 especially was when Dev takes away the Draven, loses into the Callista. They give up the Corki, which was just starting to be dominant to Bulldog. So my question was like, okay, was this a little bit of arrogance on KT's part? Was it giving away the Corki to Bulldog? And I think, especially after this week, we can say no, that Kwangdong actually looks like a very legitimately good team. Cuz is having a fantastic streak. Ignore the Gen.G game, just get that out of your mind. But other than that game, he's been great. Shown a pretty good diversity in champion pool. Dudu is the player that we expected him to be with a better jungler. Bulldog has been doing well on a variety of champions. Now we can see that, he's drawing Talia bans, to your point, Wolf, about his Talia being good. And Andal has been quite good, on a variety of different styles of picks. Like his Nami has been really good too. He's been landing a lot of bubbles, good tidal wave usage. So this has been a team that has looked very on point in the meta, has had overall pretty good individual play. And if anything, since the Bull addition to the roster, yes, he's too aggressive sometimes, right? That has been a bit of an issue, I would say, especially against Gen.G. Kind of his over-aggression did cause the game to kind of run away from them, because he needed to really smash that lane, especially with the Vi, in order to snowball, and his deaths in the lane kind of caused them to lose the momentum that they needed, particularly game 2.
Yeah,
But
game 2 was a
overall,
disaster. But game 1, when we go back to game 1, I do agree with you about game 2. And then in game 2, Cuz went 0-8 because they just decided they weren't going to lose quietly, which is fine. But game 1, their comp was really good, and the play was super sick. They got Cassante really hard by Keen in that first game. Everyone remembers that dragon fight where Keen basically 1v9'd.
Which, by the way, people complain about Cassante, but Keen played that beautifully.
He really
I get that Cassante's busted, guys, but Keen literally had to dodge every single ability from Aatrox in order for that to happen. And his Ghost came off cooldown in the middle of that team fight. And if it hadn't, I think we're looking at a very different play. So it was a game that Kwangdong was very close to winning.
Yeah, I think people are just annoyed because it seemed like Kwangdong finally did win the fight, and then it was like, wait, well, this Cassante champion yes, even if played correctly, can actually win the fight for Gen.G. I think a lot of people were also upset because they were like, oh, Kwangdong upset story incoming, ? Oh, never mind, Cassante.
And but see, Keen has also been playing like an absolute monster this season.
Yeah,
and you look at that play, and he's just an extraordinary top laner right now. And you too can stop getting mad about Cassante and start getting happy about Keen, like me. My Twitch chat on my stream has now coined the term Keenosaurs for us Keen enjoyers out there. You could use it on the broadcast, Wolf.
I will. I'm definitely gonna. I'll give your chat credit, but I'll use that.
It's great.
Well, I really thought that the way that Kwangdong played out the Jarvan in that comp was really cool. And obviously trying to threaten the Aphelios from different angles. I thought Paze's positioning was fantastic in the game. I've had people tweet at me saying no, it wasn't. I thought it was really good. When you're having to deal with Orianna ball, Jarvan engage, flanking lethality Aatrox, and obviously Lucian, who's trying to get on top of you and blow you up as well. I thought he played very well. And was still eventually picked because there's just too many threats and there's too many different angles that Kwangdong is taking. And I thought that game was honestly one of my favorite games of the week because Gen.G also played well, right? It was not like, okay, Kwangdong play well, it's a bad draft for Gen.G, and they barely almost upset because Gen.G made some mistakes. I thought both sides played extremely well. It was a super high level game that was back and forth. It could have gone either way. And frankly, we didn't get a whole lot of those games this week, unsurprisingly. Even in some of the upset losses, like for example, when KT lost a game to DRX, which was interesting in itself. For the most part, most of the games were super one-sided. So I like that game a lot. Kwangdong suddenly a team that I can look at their drafts and feel positive about. I feel like they make good decisions there. And they ban Corki when they're not going to pick it. So, that's a step in the right direction for me. I am looking forward to their next 4 stomps and then seeing if they can carry that momentum into on February 28th when they actually play against a good team in Gen.G again. So I'm holding on to it. We're going to be holding on to it for a little while, but I'm holding on to the hype a little bit.
Yeah, I think this team is good. I think this is definitely a playoff caliber team. I'd be surprised if they weren't in 5th or 6th place. There is a world where they're better than KT Rolster. They've already gotten that win. I would like to see the next iteration of this matchup when I feel like KT will take them a little bit more seriously, and it's not just an unknown how they're going to perform with Bull, which I think was, unfortunately, they were the first team to encounter Bull, and so now there's a lot more data on how he's going to perform at the professional level. But I think really big credit and to Kwangdong, and like again, it's CV Max working his magic, right? This is a team that we expected to be massively improved. They had a very disappointing start, but the revitalization has been really quick. And credit to putting Bull in, because I think he's outperformed everyone's expectations. But sometimes, guys, that's what it takes, right? Some players just need that chance to get on stage, and they get empowered by it in a way.
Yeah, I absolutely
Some
believe in that.
people, some people shy away, perform worse. Bull, when he's been giving the opportunities, has, taken the bull by the horns and actually gotten a lot done here within the league and looked like an impressive AD carry. Is he too aggressive sometimes? Yes, but it's much better for him to be limit testing so that he can actually learn, right? Yes. Has he gone all in lane too much and caused problems in terms of his team's game plan? Yes. You saw that versus GenG. But that's the only way he's going to get better. And you would much rather have a player who goes too far so you can dial it back than teach somebody how to be aggressive. Like, that's very, very important.
I absolutely agree, and I do believe that there are players who want it really badly and suddenly overperform. Like, not even just like whether he's aggressive or not. I think he just suddenly is like, oh my god, this is my chance. I'm gonna play. I'm gonna play at my best, and he's motivated. And something clicks in him, and he's back playing with Ondil, and he pops off in that first game, and then he's super confident. Then he continues to play well because he's like, I actually might become the AD carry for Guangdong Freaks. For me, I'm like, no, you have now. You definitely are. Tane's not coming back. But I think when you have that kind of opportunity, sometimes players just, no analyst could predict like that Bull is going to suddenly pop off like that, but there are these miracle moments, and we've seen it before. I've seen it in so many esports. Somebody just suddenly gets a chance, and then they absolutely become way better than they've ever been before. And I think that is what is happening to a certain extent with Bull. So anyway, Quantum Freak's most interesting team that this week. That's why we're talking
Absolutely.
about them so much. So I really
They pulled off the upset, man, and they got back-to-back upsets, and they played like a pretty legit series against the Gen.G that on paper is supposed to wipe the floor with them. So this is a team on the rise, and it's fun, guys, because I feel like the last couple of years, Wolf, there's been very few surprises in the
yeah, I mean,
LCK.
suddenly being really, really good was somewhat surprising. And that's like another thing that to me, like, we saw last year, like it was a slow rise, and then they were like the best team and they were number one and they were all pro, and then they failed ultimately to actually turn that into a championship. But that start felt somewhat similar to this. I would say it was a little bit more meteoric than this, but I feel like this could be one of those scenarios where if the improvement continues, it's another Cuz angle where Cuz is just like, no, I'm going to push this team to the top. So I want to suggest to keep your eyes on Kwangdong, those watchers of the Monte Wolf Show. Keep your eyes on them. But, there's other stuff I guess we could talk about this week.
How about Dplus? Yeah, Dplus has been really disappointing, right?
Yeah. I don't want to, but we have to. Yes. We talked about already the aiming shaming that did occur earlier this week, and then there was the Hanwha series, which again we were feeling pretty good about leading into it, and then after that first disaster game, we on that. I want to open up the drafts real quick, actually, and remind myself what the drafts look like in that series.
Yeah, because I think what's interesting about Dplus is that we were starting to have some level of confidence in them because they 2-0'd Nongshim. That was the Kassadin Pentakill game from Showmaker. Then they come in, they convincingly beat GenG in the first game of that series. That's when they had that very creative level 1, and Showmaker was on the Silas and really popped off that game. They did lose that series, but as we said, it was actually quite close to being a 2-0 for Dplus. And then the regression was very real this week. And so if you're a Dplus fan, obviously you're happy about seeing Showmaker in a good form. And I think Showmaker again played well. You probably are excited about seeing Lucid because this guy has been quite a strong performing rookie, especially on tank junglers, especially in his team fighting. And you think, okay, well, we might have a mismatch here in the mid lane because Zeka has been underperforming, even though the rest of Hanwha has been quite good. And then we get, them having kind of a stinker against Hanwha overall, which is, depressing. And it's also the way that they're drafting, because the strong points of Dplus are like, okay, so we have this LeBlanc that's coming in from Showmaker, going back to the Kwangdong game, and Lucid's playing Lee Sin. Now, this is a composition because he's playing AD LeBlanc, right? With a losing Lucian, Milio, and bot lane. They just don't have the damage in the late game to do much. But yet, they still have good ideas of how to play their win condition. Lucid and Showmaker have actually worked together very well to create picks on the map. That is a huge strong point right now. They are really good at catching people out and killing them. Now, the rest of the team, I think King and Aiming and Aiming and Kellen have all had their moments that have looked really bad. Like Kellen looked terrible
The Nautilus
against
game.
Hanwha.
The Nautilus game was really not his best game that he's played.
Well, Wolf, what I don't understand is that they lost earlier that week to the Senna Nautilus combo.
Yeah.
And
the Kwangdong variant.
With the Kwangdong variant, where the Nautilus actually built the support item, built World Atlas and turned it into Solstice Slay. What I find so confusing about this game, Wolf, is that Kellen doesn't build the support item. Senna is incredibly poor in this game, got 60, 70 CS, 20 minutes into this game. And Kellen is off side laning by himself to farm and getting dove by Hanwha and contributing fucking nothing to this game. So it's like Abing doesn't have any money as the Senna, isn't actually scaling into the late game. And Kellen is just off in his own universe attempting to farm because he doesn't have the support item. You know what I mean? And so this game, he's just completely useless. And I just don't understand why you do not opt for double support item in the last week of this patch on the Senna Nautilus lane.
So I think obviously when you look at the draft that Kwangdong played, where they had the Senna Nautilus in game 1 against Dplus, right? They have Bulldog on Talia, and they have Cuz playing around Talia quite significantly. Dudu gets ahead, and you have a huge lead. And when you're also kind of dominating the lane a little bit, because you have a lot of support from Cuz, you can end up obviously just roaming as the Senna and trying to get value elsewhere. And then the Nautilus can be either on a side, or you can just sit under a turret because he has teleport, and he's going to be able to farm and then be relevant going into team fights later. Instead, what happened in this game with Dplus is Showmaker is having a rough one. He is making no impact. Lucid is getting caught, and Kingen is getting absolutely destroyed in lane. So I think in Kellen's defense, he definitely should have bought the support item. But, if Aiming is trying to do the same thing and Kellen is being left alone, you are going to just get absolutely bodied in this game because you just have no agency. You're playing against Nakali, so if your Nautilus is not with you, and even if he is with you, frankly, you're probably just going to die, so your ability to actually farm and get stacks away from the Nautilus is super tough. You can't really do much in this scenario, and then the Nautilus, if he's left alone while everyone else is trying to group for the Senna, then he gets taken out, right? And I think they had to kind of adapt that they should play a little bit more together this game, and then they didn't do that. And Showmaker went 0-4 on the LeBlanc. I think Showmaker is playing LeBlanc in comps where it doesn't necessarily make sense to do so, but he's doing it because he's Showmaker and he likes LeBlanc. And there were other picks he could have chosen in this game. Orianna, for example, which was available, he could have played. Talking about game 1 of the Hanwha Life series. And I'm just a little bit at first it was really fun and exciting. Showmaker's doing different stuff than other people, and he's doing well and he's winning. And now it feels less exciting when he picks LeBlanc because to
be fair, he played Orianna in the second game of this series into Corki, which is a matchup that we saw Zeka get absolutely dumpstered in by Faker, and he looked quite bad on the Orianna.
He didn't look great on it.
So my theory is that the the greatest success that Dplus have had is again around creating picks with him and Lucid in the mid game, which is why we're seeing Silas. It's why we're seeing AP or AD LeBlanc. It's why we're seeing, Lee Sin and Viego. And Lucid did fuck up this game early, at level 3 in the bot side with him just like, well, technically, I think he was level 4 because he had just full cleared his jungle. And he's like running around in circles at Dragon Pit and then just randomly dying. That obviously put a chill on this game, but it doesn't mean that the game is lost. And it certainly doesn't excuse Dplus's very weird lane assignments in this game. Like, why, if you're going to cross map, right, and you're going to dive top turret and you send aiming into the top lane, right, and you've got Kingen, Lucid, and aiming diving a turret, why is your Nautilus in the bot side waiting to be dove instead of you assigning LeBlanc to the bot side and Nautilus to the mid lane? This is if you want to solo farm on the Nautilus, right, that doesn't have the support item.
So I think I think the idea about this, like, in theory, Nautilus is a very difficult champion to dive because of his kit, right? Especially in the early game, because he has roots, right? He has his ult, and like he can buy a ton of time. And if he actually has money, he's pretty tanky. So I don't, like, and I think I was actually, in fact, casting this game, and I remember this moment being like, well, I think they thought he would just live long enough to where they could force it. But you're also trying to, I believe, kill a Gwen on the other side. And so she's tough to dive as well because she has heals and she has her ultimate and like she's a super tanky. She has her shroud she can put down.
Right.
So like the execution has to be crisp. You have to be faster if you're going to do this. And I feel like they had the right idea, but it should have been a different top laner if they were going to play out this this type of strategy. Like if they were up against a top laner that's more easily diveable than a Gwen, like maybe you actually get a lot more out of these types of plays. And obviously Nautilus has teleport, so if he does die, he's going to come back to lane and he's not going to lose that much. But there were so many other issues that were happening around the map, and they lost so much tempo, and Kingen was not ahead. Like Kingen needs to be like kind of, with Lucid's help, getting some advantages. If you just want to sit with Nautilus under a turret, like then you have to have the Aatrox winning. So then you could play into that. Then you can get the Aatrox fed. Then you can actually kill the Akali on flanks if she's trying to look for flanks on your Senna. You can kill the Lucian, who is super low range, right? But they were kind of losing everywhere. So no matter what they did, I feel like it looked bad. I do think, like, I somewhat disagree. I think if they were in an even or winning game state at that in that moment, I think actually lane assignment would have been fine. But they weren't. And they kind of got dumpstered a little bit. And like it looked very silly in that moment. And I just don't want to see Dplus draft like something they've seen earlier in the week if they don't fully understand how to use it themselves. And again, some of this is about Kingen's performances, and a lot of people have been calling for Thanatos. Guess what? If you just started watching the LCK or you just heard about Thanatos, people were doing this all year last year. And guess what? We didn't see him. I can also confirm to you guys that he is not currently playing on their challengers roster. So I don't think you will be seeing...
Why do you think that is, Wolf? Why do you think that is? I'm curious.
So I think that, I mean, nobody knows for sure, right? Like, there's no official word on this as far as I know, but nobody knows for sure. But I think he thought he was going to another team, Thanatos that is, and then it fell through. Now he's still contracted to Dplus. The player that's playing instead of him, who actually I haven't really watched Dplus that much this season, they're not as dominant as they were. Let me remind myself who this is. You might as well just call him not Thanatos, because Thanatos is like the best top laner in challengers leading up until this moment. He is Shiwu. Yeah, so he's a relatively new player, born in 2007, very young. He's 16. So I think that he was kind of told, like, you're playing, it's not going to be Thanatos, and then they just honored that agreement. And so Thanatos is just riding the bench in contract jail at the moment. Or if you want to go like full conspiracy theory and you're really hopeful, maybe Thanatos is actually like kind of being slotted into a lot of Dplus scrims right now, and that's why Kingen is not doing super well, and they're waiting for a moment to maybe put him in. But I'm going to tell you guys, that's not what I believe. What I believe is that he's not going to be playing this season. It's going to be Kingen all year long, because it was Kana all year long last year. And honestly, we've talked about this a lot on this show. I actually personally believe that at the state in which Dplus were in last season and how long they had waited, it wasn't a great time to sub Thanatos or sub Thanatos out, Thanatos in, Kana out. I'm getting a little bit long-winded on this, but I think we're getting close to the point where even if Thanatos was playing in challengers and he was a known quantity, we knew he was performing and even potentially scrimming. Like, you need to sub him in before we hit round 2. Otherwise, everything you're struggling to build and that you're maybe getting closer to building with this roster, you have to start from scratch. You have to start from step 1 again. And I think even if they were going to decide to put Thanatos in now, it might already be too late because Lucid's already showing some of his rookie issues, right? As we've discussed. Some of the macro plays we're seeing are a little bit off here from Dplus compared to what we've seen in the
Let's
past.
talk about that. Because like game 2 is a great example of this, by the way. Game 2 is a great example of this because this is against all odds. This is actually a winnable game because again, Zeka is fucking terrible at Corki.
Remember that package he used in that game?
Do you remember when he face checked a brush for no reason and just died in the mid lane? Very puzzling. Very puzzling. Yeah, like I don't know what's going on with this guy's Corki. Like, it's shameful that he actually was able to come out with a couple of Corki wins this week because he beat Nongshim in the final game of last night as well. But especially this game still doesn't inspire great confidence in Zeka's Corki play. But the thing is that we harped on it last year. The problem with Dplus is late game macro and late game shot calling. And what do we see? What do we see in this game, Wolf? They get into a winnable game state. They throw away an Ash Arrow and they immediately start Baron while Kingan's Meganar is on cooldown and he can't build up rage. They don't have any engage. They don't just force TP and walk away from the Baron. They sit there and then just flip it. Zeka steals it with a Corki rocket and then they lose the game. And it's like, you didn't have to do this, Dplus. Like, you were in a perfectly good position to keep on accelerating this game. And yet what we see in the end is a super ill-advised Baron call. They're not thinking about their composition, what tools they need to win this fight. And it's just like, you cannot fight this without Ash Arrow. You cannot fight this without Meganar. Hanwha realizes that. And so they just bully them off the Baron, get an early smite in, and then Zeka takes the final small amount of HP with a Corki rocket.
And I mean, even if like they aren't able to get that steal, Dplus are in an extremely dangerous position. Even if they're able to secure the Baron, like they're likely to lose the ensuing fight. So
yeah, you just don't take that Baron fight. What you do is you force TP, you get vision control, and you play for the next objective, which, by the way, was a Hextech Drake that would put them on soul point. They're too eager. Like, it was almost like they were so convinced that they were going to lose this game, despite the fact that they were in a gold lead even after the Baron was stolen. All you had to do was play slow, play for vision. And there's nobody on this team like checking ult cooldowns, talking about win conditions. They're like, they panic. And that's a very bad sign.
This is a thing that happens with Dplus. Like, it happened last year with a, relatively similar roster-ish, but, not this exact roster. Is just a lack of voice, a lack of shot calling, a lack of, clear ult tracking, and there's very clearly a difference between a game that Dplus is steamroll stomping through the early mid game and when it's an even or slightly behind game state. When they are absolutely dumpstering people in the early to mid, there aren't that many tough decisions to make, so they just keep making the right ones. They put deep vision up, they push their lanes, they threaten people, they set up dives, right? Showmakers flying around the map at light speed, like killing anyone who shows.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to that type of game, like the same thing we saw last year when Canyon was on this roster, it's either Canyon POG every game because they're winning and they're crushing and he actually carried the early game and they're all ahead, so they don't have to make tough decisions, or they have to make tough decisions and they don't make the right ones, and it's just consistently kept happening. And the Bible was subbed in because they're like, maybe he'll, shot call, maybe he'll change this. It's wild that we have like a different roster and yet the same problems remain. But if you look at the roster itself, Kingan, not a shot caller, Lucid, very new, rookie, right? Doesn't have the experience to shot call in the LCK. Aiming It's not going to be him. He's the AD carry. Same problem with Deft. Like, I think Aiming is a fairly vocal player, but not in terms of macro calls and ult tracking and stuff like that. Kellen, who didn't do it last year. And then Showmaker, who's an insane veteran, but just hasn't been able to prove that he can make those calls, which is kind of surprising because Showmaker has the personality, you would think, to be a little bit more vocal and see the game, especially with his massive experience. He's a world champion, be able to kind of hold this roster together, but he isn't doing it. And so that's another reason why I don't think bringing Thanatos into this team is going to suddenly fix it, because he's also a rookie. And I don't think that's going to make this better. I think it could potentially make it worse. So, I mean, Kingan's mechanical ability aside, like, the shot calling is the problem. And I think that's not solvable right now.
How is Kellen so bad at shot calling after years of being a pro? Like, why isn't he the one being like, hey guys, I missed my arrow, let's just force TP, and then, we can't fight this? Like, where is his voice in all of this? It's outrageous.
I think he's just a very soft-spoken person, like, just based on what I've seen of him in comms and what I've seen of him, in interviews and stuff. I'm not saying he's like too shy to shot call, but he's just not, when you see the comms, when you see like the guy yelling like who to focus and like, he has no flash and stuff like that, Kellen doesn't strike me as that type of person. Like, I'm not very close to them personally, so I could have the wrong read, but just based on what I've seen, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who's going to be yelling like Delight is, for example, going into team fights, where he's giving tons of information and he's sharing like flank angles. He's like, watch out for this, like, look at this angle, focus this person, Baron's up in 30. He's just like constantly going. And Bible was kind of like that, but Bible had other mechanical problems that, made it so that he wasn't actually the right call for this team. But the coaching staff and everything that went into building this, like the GMs, are they going into building this roster, never really accounted for their main problem that they had last year, and now we have it again. And that's what feels not great if you're a Dplus fan. Because Barrel, by the way, he was that guy. He was. And that's why this team was so good back then. They had good, obviously, other good parts to it. And Nuggery was fantastic, right? Canyon Showmaker, one of the best mid jungle duos. But when Barrel's there to make calls, like, this team makes good decisions and made. Like, I remember looking at this team in 2021 going, damn, they were like 5,000 gold behind, but they made all the right choices. They set up for this team fight beautifully. That is nowhere near where we are anymore with this team. It feels really sad. I think people just have to realize that until that changes, this team is probably fourth at best, but I don't think they're going to drop out of playoffs. But I think they could be sixth at worst, which is a far cry from where it used to be.
I think it's important to note that Dplus, while they may be 2-4 right now, they did play a competitive series versus Gen.G. I think it's just it's variable on the day. This team, like, they can snowball very well if they're ahead, but if they're playing a close game in the mid and late game, that's where you should start getting super worried about them, that they're just gonna make a stupid mistake. Their drafts also, like I said, it's very hard, I think, to win with like LeBlanc, Lee Sin pick comps in the current meta because of the amount of tankiness that gets into the mid and late game. Like, executing on those picks becomes really difficult because there's only certain players you can go after. Like, you're not going to kill a bunch of the tanks in this game with an 80 LeBlanc and a Lee Sin. Like, you're just not. But in terms of their opponents, like Dplus played a close series against KT, played a legitimate, almost beat Gen.G, if we're being honest. And then they beat Nongshim and Brion convincingly. But so far, they've had to play Kwangdong, Hanwha, Gen.G, and KT, right? In their round robin, these are 4 out of the, 5, I would say, challenging teams. Like, they haven't played T1 yet. That's gonna be coming up. But it's their first game next week. So there's a real chance that this team goes 2-5, but I think they're very likely to end the first round robin 4-5 at this point in time, because after that, it's literally like
FearX and DRX.
DRX and FearX. So,
yeah. And then they will play against DRX a second time, as after FearX,
and then Brion.
Yeah.
And so like there's a chance, like, by the time they hit a good team again, they actually have a winning record.
Yeah, it could be. And I think maybe that's what's needed for their confidence. But like I said, I don't think this team is not going to playoffs, but I could see a world where they like get knocked out of playoffs in the first round by like Guangdong Freaks or something like that. If this trend doesn't, if we can't break this trend, if they can't actually get out of the shot calling issues and some of the weird plays we're seeing from Aiming and King, and I hope. I never like to see a top org fall to the edge of playoffs or even out of playoffs. And I had to watch KT do that for many, many years. And it's not great when your reputation is kind of faltering consistently because you can't figure it out. And I think it might be, if we were looking at this, if everything we were just saying comes true and like they do like lose in the first round of playoffs or something like that, then we go into summer, we have the same issues, and then they build a roster that doesn't have a shot caller for 2025. Then at some point we got to start talking about the org. Like I'm not ready to like go that deep yet, but I mean I'm starting to wonder. I am starting to wonder, Monty.
It was baffling, and we did criticize them about this. When this roster was formed, tell me which player is supposed to be the shot caller. Is it the rookie Lucid? Is it Kingen or Aiming? Because otherwise you didn't fix the core issue with this team.
Yeah. Is it Showmaker? Like maybe Showmaker said sure, but then isn't doing it. I don't know.
Yeah. So bummer if you're a Dplus fan, because it feels like even though we get better Showmaker performances and Lucid's been a beast, we just don't have a cohesive team at the end of the day. And they'll be good enough, they'll just outskill people who are going to be, outskill some of the bottom teams. But it does suck to think that this team is really just capped in terms of its macro ability. And I just don't see that getting better, unfortunately.
Do we want to talk about how this season of the LCK is basically just T1 and Gen.G heading directly to the finals at high speeds, and then also trolling people on the way?
Yes,
like
the
when
happy gaming has been real, especially from T1, right?
Like when T1 like when Bro, by the way, drafted Stena Ornn with Caitlyn Lux up with Gumayusi on the other side. The Bro's drafting. Bro has a lot of issues, and I don't want to talk about him too much on the show because it's very sad.
They are fucking hot trash, man. They are so bad. It is
the worst
team in the league by a lot.
I think there's a pretty decent chance they go 0-18. Yeah.
I mean, to their credit, they're trying new players. Like we got to see a new bot lane this week, which is good because effort is fucking shit. So like anything is better, but also, I mean, like you said, Wolf, was this lane like trial by fire, man? Like,
yeah, they literally put these guys in.
Against Gumayusi and carry as Caitlyn Lux. Like, get dumpstered, kids.
So I mean, this team has some of the worst drafting we have ever seen, but like they let this happen with their rookie players coming in, Samver and Palu, and as it turns out, if you draft like this, you will just lose every turret plate on the map if you don't have like a really strong jungler to hold it together, which they do not. Like we were watching that game, I was watching, I was on the analyst desk that day, and I was yelling at the TV, being like, "Get 15 plates!" Like, and then like they didn't actually force to get 15 plates. I wanted them to get 15 because that just doesn't happen, right? In professional play, I was like yelling, like, "Get all 15!" I'm like, "No!" Like Carrie was like backing. I'm like, "No, get the 15 plates!" Because we just knew the game was over, and I just wanted it to be as silly as possible. But like, don't draft like that for your rookies. And frankly, like a lot of people are like, "Well, at least they're trying shit." But like for me, I'm like, no. You need to actually. If you actually want to win a game this season, then like you need to like decide. You can't like if I see this team come back after the Lunar New Year and they're like, well, we kept Palu, but actually we brought Envy back. I'll be like, look, you need to pick a roster because this is not like Danny's Wild Ride where you're like, oh, I'll still make it to playoffs and we're still a legit team. We're actually swapping around 10 of the best players in the world. No, you need to actually. You're otherwise just like playing with children's toys right now. Like, in terms of like building this together, like what happens if I move? Like, what if Gideon plays top? Like, I feel like we're about to go down this level of like, well, who knows? For Bro. And you can't do that to these players because they'll never get it together. They'll never form the synergy that's required to like win 2 games this season. Because that might be the season or the ceiling rather. They already lost to DRX once. So maybe 1 is the best you're going to get now. If that. And I think that if you're basically just saying we are going to go 018 and we don't care and we're just going to mess around and like summer is the goal, then fine. Yeah, you could play around with your roster and turn the LCK into a losing scrim block. Like if you want, I think you need to be careful about like just messing around with these players and like moving and slotting people in every week, because otherwise the players are going to be unhappy. They're not going to feel motivated. They're going to feel like they're about to get yoinked at any possible time, and you're not going to build synergy. And like, this is what scrims are for. This is what tryouts are for. This is what you're supposed to do during the lead up to the season, especially if you're just planning on using like challengers players and getting a budget roster. Like, you knew what you bought, you knew what you got. Like, if you're just gonna like mess around with it now, Edgar, I'm not really high on Edgar right now. I'm not really high on this org right now, for obvious reasons. But I would like them to pick a roster and stick with it for the rest of the season, and then spend the off season to make changes, rather than like seeing a different roster from this team every week, get bodied, and then like having to cast it and having to analyze it and being like, well, yeah, I mean, Gideon's out again this week, and it's too much for me, Monty. I want this team to actually be a real team and learn and figure out how to draft. If Karas has to play Azir every game because he can only play like Azir or Lissandra, then have him play Lissandra and build a dive comp. Or actually run a comp with Azir that makes more sense, that has additional scaling. Like, don't just pick it every time because Karas can only play that. Is that really what's going on? Is that why your drafting is so bad? I don't know. It's gonna be a no. It's like a Shanghai Dragons light situation. The negative 18 is incoming potentially.
They at least, I mean, Brienne's at least won a game. I do want to talk about Gen.G a little bit, because they continue rolling. Wolf, do you have any concerns about these guys because they keep rolling?
I mean, not really. I do think Pays, like Lehen seems annoyed at Pays too, like in an endearing way, but I think that means that like probably Lehen's is gonna make Pays get better fast at some of the mistakes he's making, some of the judgment calls he's making. You can just see it in comms where Lehen's is just like, I told you don't do that. Okay, all right, it's fine. It's fine. We're 7,000 gold up. It's fine. But like, don't do that. I feel like the Hens definitely enjoyed playing with aiming more so far. But we'll see how that continues to grow there. Like I did find it very hilarious that when FearX drafted Zaya Rakan yesterday, Gen.G decided to just play Azir to like spare them. Instead of just absolutely obliterating one of the worst AD carry duos you can play into Corki. And they just decided to play Azir instead for fun. That's like the extent of the happy gaming for Gen.G, that T1 is like, we'll do something insane that makes no sense, the diver fountain and troll you. And Gen.G is kind of like very subtly like, Azir is bad, but we'll win with this instead. I'm not really worried about Gen.G. I'm excited for the rematch of Gen.G and T1, but otherwise I feel like this team loses to no one, like period, right now. And I think that the same is basically true of T1. Like T1 versus Dplus that's happening in week 4 sounds exciting on paper when you think of the glory days of Dplus, but then you remember reality and where we're at, and then you go, okay, well, it's a 2-0 100%, like not even a chance that Dplus takes a game there. And I feel like every time I see a Gen.G matchup, I kind of feel the same way looking at their schedule. I'm like, Gen.G DRX, Gen.G FearX, Gen.G Hanwha. Yeah, I'm like, win, 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 win.
Right.
We are inevitably heading towards, that's right, you guessed it, another Gen.G T1 finals. No! Give me something else. How come KT just couldn't do it, Monty, last season? Why could we get a different finals once? They just couldn't do it. They couldn't do it.
I know, it's so depressing.
I'm like, we're going to be talking about this like more and more as the weeks go by, as we get closer and closer to playoffs. They're going to be like, oh, it looks like T1 Gen.G. No, not again, every time. It's fine. They're the best team. So, I mean, you get the best. That's what we deserve.
I mean, the real tragedy is like Hanwha didn't get scout or something, when he was a free agent. Like, why couldn't like BDD go to Hanwha, right? Why, just please, why couldn't there have been? Hanwha is so close, Wolf. They're so close to being super good. They're so close.
They're so close, and yet so Zeka. Like, I mean,
Um,
or maybe suddenly Riot will patch Zeka into being a world champion again. Maybe it will just become an insane Silas Akali meta, and he'll just be right up there with everybody else. It'll be perfect. Maybe there's still
this week at least, we finally got to see it.
yeah. See, it's viable. It's possible. Maybe Hanwha could be the team to make the run, but not this week against GenG. We're still thinking that GenG is going to take it. Get that 1.7 while you can.
Yeah, exactly. And GenG, I mean, as you say, like part of me doesn't like the fact that it seems inevitable that we get another T1 GenG finals, but the other part of me is like, I really want to see that best of 5.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, it is the best League of Legends you're going to get right now, unless something changes. So, it is what we want. It is what we deserve, and that's how tournaments work. Like the best two teams are going to play against each other. It's just that T1 didn't change their roster at all. GenG still have some core elements of their roster from last season, so it just feels like it says more about the LCK than it says about the two teams, right? Like they're really strong, they remain strong. GenG made some big roster changes. They're still the best team right now. T1 obviously won Worlds. They're a super strong team, but no one else in the LCK is challenging them, which means that like I'm not saying the system is broken or that like the economy of the LCK is totally wrong, but I feel like teams are not making the best decisions possible in terms of roster building in the LCK, which we've been talking
Yep.
about for a really long time.
I mean, if KT had just run back their roster from last year, they would have been a very legitimate threat too. But they
Absolutely.
gave up, they gave up Cuz and Keen. I don't even hate it if they run with Deft and Barrel in the bot lane. There's a world where we got Deft, Lehens, BDD, Keen, Cuz as a roster, and that would have been really mega, right? But there are flaws, and I think, guys, this is crazy to say, but the one hope is that Bulldog massively levels up, and then all of a sudden Kwangdong is a real team, like a very legit team.
Yeah, I mean,
And
Dudu has
Bulldog's
always
been
been
getting
really good.
better.
Yeah, Dudu's really good. He always has been. So I mean, maybe if Bulldog actually becomes a consistent threat, like if he can get up to like BDD's level,
Just hard.
if
It's
he
very
but if he
hard.
could, like if he could,
Yeah.
then I could see them as a real contender. But when you do the T1 versus GenG finals and you bring out the narrative points, for me it's like I just kind of like cross out the last digit of the year of the one before. I'm like I pull out my 2023 spring finals and like cross out the 3 and put a 4, and then I'm like, all right, like, and then I had to cross out like it's Faker's like 17th final and like right 18th final. And yeah, I'm hoping that we get to see it. Like I want a big 3 back. We had a big 3 in Dplus being in that, and now we don't.
Yeah.
So I want a new third team. And I don't think I'm going to get it this season, unfortunately. But that's okay. As long as we get GenG versus T1 continuing to perform at a high level and they don't like atrophy as they speed run every single week team they absolutely dominate in 2-0
Well,
over and over.
I
Then
think also when it comes to international competition, like because MSI only has 2 seeds, LCK will send 2 very strong teams. And then as far as Worlds is concerned, LPL, honestly, look, it's early days, but a lot of the LPL teams, like the depth of the field in LPL is not what it was last year. Like the depth of LPL last year was crazy. And outside of like BLG looks incredible, but outside of BLG and like top, there have been some pretty serious flaws with a variety of the other LPL teams. So it's not like, I still think that in spite of the drop off after the top 2, it's kind of the same in China right now, honestly. Like,
yeah,
we do see flawed teams beyond the top 2 over in LPL.
and I think obviously some of this is because it's spring and some of these rosters
Yeah.
are flawed, like as we've discussed a lot already. But some of them will look better in summer because they've had a season to work on some of that stuff and improve. I'm not worried about LCK for MSI. I agree that T1 and GenG they'll very likely go and they will do very well. So it's more about just for me outside of international competition. I want to see the overall level of LCK go up to where I can be excited about a 4th to 5th place team fighting against another 4th or 5th place team and actually feeling like it could be quite competitive and quite interesting, or even like a 2nd place team against a 5th place team could be quite interesting, because I feel like there have been many seasons in the past where we've seen upsets like that. We've seen some really high level play from even lower ranked teams. You know, when Live Sandbox, for example, had their meteoric rise where they went up to like 3rd place, for example, last year. Stuff like that is exciting and fun. Maybe Kwangdong Freaks is going to be that team right now. But otherwise, I don't like it when I look at the upcoming week of matches and I know what's going to happen for most of them. And the ones I don't know, like when it's like Bro versus DRX, I dread because the level of play is so poor that it's not going to be enjoyable. Because I just want people to enjoy the LCK every day, no matter what the matchup is. I don't want people to go, I just want to watch the T1 Gen.G matches, and the rest is like, I'm not interested. I want to see the level up. And I can't control that, but I'm hopeful, Monty, especially about Kwangdong Freaks. That's kind of like how I'll leave it today. I'm hopeful this team grows. Give me a 3rd one, please.
Here, I'm hopeful that TheShy, who's a free agent, joins Dplus. That's what I hope for. If I'm gonna have to watch Dplus Fiestas, I want to really enjoy it. Right?
Would you join Dplus, Monty? If you
Hey,
were the
he doesn't
Shy?
have a job right now.
I would love
I'm
to
just
see it.
saying.
I would love to
I'm
see
just
it.
saying.
Do you think he could shot call for them?
I don't care about that. I just care about entertainment. You cannot argue that objectively TheShy being on Dplus would be infinity times more entertaining than Kingin.
It would also bring more viewership. So yeah, I mean, you've sold me. You've sold me. It's not going to solve the inherent problems of the LCK and its very top heavy nature at the moment, but it may bring us reasons to watch Dplus.
I mean, it would be very exciting because TheShy is that rare Korean like superstar player, world champion, who's never actually played a single game in LCK. So I would love to see it.
It could give you the opportunity to turn a sad moment into a humorous moment, I think, for some of those Dplus losses. So yeah, I'm behind it.
All right, guys. As I said at the start of the show, Monte and Wolf Show will not be happening because we have no games to discuss this week due to the Lunar New Year. So if you celebrate, obviously, happy Year of the Dragon to you. You can play Smolder because Riot is absolutely shameless when it comes to marketing tie-ins, releasing the Dragon Champ right as the Year of the Dragon starts. Right, Wolf? It's just good marketing strategy. What are people in Korea thinking about the Dragon Champ right at Lunar New Year, Year of the Dragon release?
I think mostly they're just concerned about how strong it is and are a little bit confused about why it's not an AP champion. That's I think they're a little bit less like, I think the marketing might be working. I think they're a little bit less concerned about like, that's a weird coincidence timing wise. I think they're more concerned about the champions kit in general, which we'll probably spend some time talking about in a few weeks once it eventually becomes playable in professional play. Because I think that champ might be a problem.
Well, guys, so enjoy the week off from LCK, also from LPL. LPL only runs till Wednesday, and then they take 10 days off, I believe. So it'll be quite a long break for the Asian leagues, and Wolf and I will be back with you in 2 weeks' time. See you then.